Welcome everybody online. Welcome everybody in the room. We're taking up the second part of our study of breaking the habit of being ourselves, the book and the work of Joe Dispenza. And last week I talked about Hebb's law, that the cells in our brains that fire together, wire together, and that's why we can do so many things. You can drive without even realizing you're doing it. Multitasking when you're driving, not a good idea, but we can all do it. In his book, actually, he talks about, it's like that mom that can help her kid blow her nose, make all the right turns, see the signals, and drop kids off at school. That is because we've done these things so many times that we can do them without thinking. In dance world, I'm looking at Carolyn right now, we call that muscle memory, that your muscles take you where you're supposed to go before you can even think about it. That you so instill the practice, the routine, the technique in your body, and your body informs your mind what to do next, right? And in Dr. Dispenza's book, he talks about it, though, that can be how we get stuck, how we keep doing things unconsciously and keep creating the same things over and over again. That our personalities, and what he talks about, just a quick review, is that your personal self creates your personal reality. And how he talks about it is your sense of being. The thoughts you think, the feelings you feel, and the behaviors you habitually do, or is what he calls your sense of self, your purpose becomes filled by what you do habitually, right? So we think habitually. So in his book, there's this great story about the power of thought and the power of coherence. How many of you know about the HeartMath Institute? About half. So HeartMath Institute is based here in California, and they have studied the heart and the intelligence of the heart and done quantitative studies to map the electromagnetic field that the rhythm of our hearts produce and how we can harness that power, that sense, to create. One of the things that I always love about HeartMath and the story is like, have you ever walked into a room and it's in dead silence, but you know something just happened in that room? You can just feel it, right? That's because if people were having a fight in the room right before you, their electromagnetic fields are still generating this energy, whether they're saying words or not. You walk into it and you immediately feel it. We all feel each other's electromagnetic field of our heart right now, and it's actually more powerful than the electromagnetic field generated by our brains. Our heart takes up more space. It's how you extend yourself. And have you ever walked into a room and just felt it filled with love? It's like, oh, here I want to be. That's also one of the ways you can tell about your heart. So, long story short, the HeartMath Institute has done a lot of research on this. And they understand that when you're in coherence, meaning when your heart is, when you are holding positive emotions, love, compassion, harmony, that your heart beats at a different rhythm than when you're thinking about grief and revenge and blame. And the coherent state, your heart and your electromagnetic field is more powerful. Look what I attracted. Okay, so if you could tell someone that I need some help, I'm going to keep going because this is delightful. I don't want to not have these hugs. Are you okay? Are you okay? All right, you can just hold me. So anyway, there was a study, and it's in Dr. Dispenza's book, about DNA. And they chose DNA strands because they're more stable than cells. Here we go. Thank you, Lizette. Okay, I'll see you later, dude. So what they did in this study is they took strands of DNA and suspended them in vials of water. And they asked a group of heart math specialists to hold the vials of water and to be in coherence, to meditate for 2 minutes in a state of coherence. When they tested the DNA after, there was no visible effect of on the DNA. Then they asked a different group, to hold heart coherence and to think the thought that the DNA strands were winding or unwinding. Right? So they're in heart coherence, and now they're holding the thought that the DNA strands are unwinding, or some of them were holding the strands were winding, for 2 minutes. And when they studied that batch of DNA samples, they had unwound or wound by 25%, a quarter, by holding coherence and holding the thought that they were going to do it. And then they had a third study where they only held the thought that the strands were going to unwind or wind. And again, no visible effect on the DNA. And what this study shows is that when we hold thoughts, when we say affirmations, when we do these things in the world without our bodies and our feeling, our emotional life being part of it, it doesn't have any effect in the material world. But when we're in coherence, when our minds and our bodies are in alignment, it all works. And it works in the material world. We literally change reality. If you can unwind DNA by being in coherence, thinking and feeling, your whole being is then attracting to you what you say and what you're demonstrating you want, right? And so there's amazing opportunities in this. And I asked Callie and Marcus to sing that song because it holds that. It holds that energy of enthusiasm and vision for the possible. And that's what we get to do if we truly want to change. And I ask this question all the time. Do you guys want the world to be different? Do we want our lives to be different than it is right now? Yeah. So we have to be in alignment with what we say we want. We have to step forward to make this better. There's great examples. Dr. King envisioned and spoke about and lived into the energy of a world that didn't exist, right? And he was able to make it happen. He was able to make major strides on that journey happen by just the sheer vision. I have a dream. I have a dream. And he brought so many of us along by holding that vision in its energy, in its enthusiasm, even though there was very little evidence of it in the real world at the time he spoke those words. And we have more to do. But wow, that's proof that when you're in coherence, things happen. He based his work on the work of Mahatma Gandhi, who also stood up against the empire, the British Empire, and through the force of peaceful interjection and by holding the vision of what the world could be, he shifted a whole empire, changed the planet. Harriet Tubman was born into slavery, had no idea what it was to be free, right? Was married to a free man, but was unable to control her own life until she envisioned a world that would not include personal servitude and slavery. And she made it happen for herself and for hundreds of other people by creating an underground railroad, creating a whole system, enrolling people in a way of being, in a way of understanding that transcended what was possible. Didn't appear before her eyes until she named it, claimed it, and walked the walk for it. Nelson Mandela, held in prison for 27 years And one of his statements in prison is the only time he was really in danger during those 27 years was when he thought ill, when he was in pain around his captors and thought them less than human. That's when he described that he was out of coherence, that he wasn't holding a vision of a world that worked for everyone, wasn't holding a vision of a peaceful post-apartheid, but was holding resentment. And when he realigned himself and when he was freed, he created a peaceful transition of power by the power of him holding that in coherence. Now, all of these people and countless other, I could go on and on and on, all of these people were flawed human beings. I could tell you all the stories about the other things they did. Just like us, we fall short of the mark all the time. But they held something that shifted the planet. And you may be saying, who am I to do all those things that they did? Well, you're a beloved, magnificent child of God. And you possess all the skills and all the ability that you need to shift your world. And the earth will respond. The material world will respond to what you hold in consciousness. How many of you today were greeted by Kate when you walked in the door? How many of you were greeted by Kate the first time you came here? Yes. Right? Did it make a difference? Yes. I know it did for me the first time I walked in. How many of you took part in meditation here this morning? Right? A whole bunch of others, and online took part in meditation. Did having that experience with another person shift your day? Yeah, because meditation is how we get to the beta brain waves, how we get to the place where we're not in habit, we're not in rote behavior, but we're in conscious creation, aligned with the universal power, right? So 2 little examples of how people made a difference. When you walked in and Callie and Marcus and this amazing band got up and started singing Ain't No Mountain High Enough, how many people felt physically changed just by being in the presence of that or hearing it online in your home, right? All those things have affected how this day is going to go for each and every one of us, right? How my little son ran up and hugged me, right? And I could have made that something, Joshua, or I had the choice to embrace the hug and celebrate that my 3-year-old son is not going to be 3 much longer. And then I want the hugs while I can get them, right? Even if it's in the middle of a talk, right? So every moment when we can stop behaving in rote, when we can stop behaving as we think the world wants us to show up, and show up genuine and willing to see it differently, willing to be changed at core, willing to break the habit of being who we think we should be, right? Because those behaviors, those rote, unconscious behaviors are just creating more of the same and more of the same. And it is time for us all to shift that, to take this moment and to breathe into the new world of infinite possibility. There's a simple practice that I use it. I got it from Dr. Dispenza, and I use it in my Absolute Abundance classes. How many of you have a gratitude practice? Right? My gratitude practice is to write gratitudes to my partner and to list what I'm grateful for. But one of the things that Dr. Dispenza suggests, and I'm suggesting to each and every one of us, is that we have gratitude for things that have not yet happened. And the reason for this is when you can feel into the gratitude of things that what you are expecting, wanting, desiring. It shifts your body and then your mental state of what you're affirming you want, and the gratitude practice lifting you up into the joy and the pleasure of that thing makes you in coherence. So when you're having gratitude, not for the things already in your life, but the things that you are expecting, you are making them happen. You're making the new neural pathways that will align your brain, and you will create before it is physically there. There are also studies that we've all heard about that come from HeartMath and from other people, where people can rehearse playing the piano. And they can practice and they can get better at whatever they're practicing, physically playing the piano. But they can also rehearse it mentally. And the studies have proven that they can improve just as much by just doing it in their heads as doing it physically on the piano. We all watch, who watches the Olympics? Ice skating, right? You watch the ice skaters, or you watch any athlete, right? And they will rehearse their routines. And the ice skaters, they put on headsets so they hear their music, and they rehearse their routines solely in their heads before they get on the ice. And studies have proven that that makes their routines, their physical performance better, just as much as actually practicing it. So are we doing that? Are we rehearsing our lives? Are we envisioning our lives and imagining conversations, difficult but crucial conversations, going well, going the way we want them to? Or are we rehearsing them that they're going to be tragic and difficult? Because tragic and difficult has a lot of cool energy, doesn't it? We get to be the victim. We get to be, oh, look what they've done to me. And that energetically creates more of that. So what if we rehearsed our life every morning when you got up, set your intention for what you wanted your life to be that day, and experience the gratitude of it before you even get out of bed, before you have your first cup of coffee, before you go down the rote path to getting dressed, showering, getting to the computer, turning on Zoom, checking your calendar. What if we create the world we really see with a million dreams swimming in our heads right here and right now? That's what's possible if this works. To create your life, you have to think and be greater than your circumstance. All those people that I listed and numerous more thought greater than their current circumstances. Are you? Am I? We could create a world that works for everyone. We can create a world of equality and justice. We can do it. All we have to do is feel and see it and know it and call it forth. We can create the world today, a vision for what we want to see. 99% of your being is just pure energy. The 1% of you that is physical matter, 1% is limiting us because we think we are this body. We are our diagnosis. We are our heredity, our gender, our age. In the quantum world, there is no time and there is no space. Right? It all is happening right now, right here. This is the moment. This is what's possible. And when we can meditate and shift our being, we get a glimpse, an opening into that infinite future. So one of Dr. Dispenza's other things he says is that you have to create a new self, and the way to do it is through meditation. But when you meditate, you should get up different than when you sat down, right? I'm going to invite our music team up. And I'm going to invite us into that journey to actually go into this meditation and be willing to shift ourselves so much that the person who stands up and dances with these great singers at the end of the meditation is the person who is different than is going into it. Are you willing to be changed at core? Are you willing to invent a new self? No? Okay, you want to stay with the current status quo? Are you willing to create a new you? All right, that's better. Are you willing to go with me and with these incredible musicians on this journey?